Okay. If you compare gouache to watercolor, there's pros and cons for each of them. Gouache is great for large solid shapes, especially if you're reproducing the artwork, because it doesn't reflect, and like if you're making a Christmas card or a calendar or something, the artwork's going to look really good. And as we said before, mistakes are easier to correct because you just paint over them. Since it has less water, it dries faster. And you can paint dark to light or light to dark. And watercolor, as we know, is beautiful. The finishes are beautifully translucent, because of the way the light reflects, the way the colors blend. The colors blend effortlessly, and it seems to be a little easier to learn than gouache is. Now, if we go to where was I? Crozabot. Okay, the cons of gouache. Next slide here. Okay, as I said, gouache is more difficult to learn. You need more practice. The colors are harder to blend because they don't bleed together when they touch together like watercolor does. You need white to make colors lighter instead of just adding water the way you do in watercolor. The downside of watercolors is that they take a long time to dry. You really can't paint a layer over a lower layer until it's completely dry. As we said, you're limited on the types of papers you can use, and with my experience, it's really tough to correct mistakes. And you can only paint from light to dark, and you have to leave the paper, white for light areas. You can't. There's no way around that, I don't think, and the colors can bleed together. Here's you can see this example here of it's the same thing in orange painted. On the left is gouache, and on the right is watercolor. You can see the watercolor is definitely more transparent than the gouache. But the gouache appeals to me because the image is punchier. It just really, my eye is drawn to the left side. But in general, you can alter the opacity of the paint, of the gouache paint, by mixing gouache with more or less water, which might be useful if you're just roughly trying to just fill something in, get a sketch going. In general, you should let your background dry before painting over it. Otherwise, you're going to muddy the colors. And what you also can do is a dry brushing or a scumbling technique over the dry paint, where you take gouache and go over it, go over your background or the area you're working in, and it gives you some interesting textures, almost like a bit of relief. In general, you probably should not varnish or fix gouache paintings, because the varnish it may alter the colors, and the finished quality of the painting. But if you're going to frame them like watercolors, they're sensitive to light, so it's best to frame them behind a UV filtering glass and not hang them in direct light. So there's just a couple examples here I just want to show you of this fellow here. His name's Larry Francis, and he's a painter in Philadelphia. And what he does, he paints these gouaches using black paper most of the time. And he'll do these on location. He's done thousands of them. Sometimes he does the small gouaches as studies for larger paintings. You can see here on this left example behind this pink tree, I'm not sure what it is, but he's left the windows to be in the building to be the color of the paint of the paper underneath. And so it's kind of interesting. And then what he does, he just goes over top with more and more paint to cover the sky, for example, till he gets what he wants. And the same is with the Gulf station on the right. He uses black paper and he just keeps covering it until he gets what he wants. This next one is on the left is a plein air demo by a painter named Mike Hernandez, who uses gouache quite a lot. You can see the quality of it and how everything's opaque. On the right is a sketchbook study by James Gurney. And if you go to one of those links that I have at the back, you'll see how he uses this, how he puts this painting together. Again, he uses just a small, he carries a few materials with him, a small sketchbook, and he just sits there on location. I started using gouache a little while ago. So I'm certainly not as technically great as those guys. I haven't used it very long, but anyway, I thought this could be kind of interesting to try to use this stuff for small studies, because I've got one painting I wanted to do of this moonlight coming through my bathroom window at night. It made these really nice areas of bright light contrasted against color. But I thought, well, why don't I try to use this gouache to make color studies and see what might be a little bit more interesting than just trying to replicate the photo I took. So these are three examples. So I started with these, and then I went on to make these, which are a little bit larger, a little bit more filled in. But again, a little bit, certainly not the same light as what's in the reference photo. And I was drawn to the right example because it seemed to say something with the complementary color relationship happening with that purple, contrasted next to that orange. So, this is the painting in progress. It's not nearly finished, but this size is 32 by 22, and it's oil on linen. So I think it's going to be good. Here's another example. I was trying gouache again for a painting I wanted to do of a woman in profile with dramatic lighting from above. I just wanted to see what colors, what color relationships that I could start with. So what I did, I came closer to what's on the left there, and as well as I changed the composition, as well as kind of the theme, because I wanted to do a series of paintings using birds as kind of a metaphor for kind of what's happening in each of the paintings. So she's trying to catch a hummingbird in this one, but this is in progress and it's far from finished. But anyway, now we'll move into the demonstration. And what I wanted to do was, this was a reference photo that I found online from a painter. He does a sailboat in the bay. And what you see over top is something that Jeff Chorty, I don't know if he's here or not, he showed us this harmonic grid example that I thought might be kind of fun to try to use, which I did. I adjusted the clouds, the horizon, and the sailboat itself if you see that top pink line, I adjusted the clouds so they follow that line. I moved up the horizon so it occupies the lower third of the composition. And I also moved this boat because I think it was way over to the left, but I moved it so it was more in line with these converging diagonals, as well as the I guess it's the right third of the painting. But anyway, and these are the links that I wanted to show you guys that I'll put up there at the end. So what I'm going to do now is go over to the demonstration. All right, what I wanted to do was to, as I said, I took that same painting and made a watercolor of it. This is my attempt. I'm not a watercolorist, but I try to I use the Arches watercolor paper, And you know, I started in here. I did this gradated sky, followed by these clouds. You know, the sailboat, the water, and the land in the horizon. So that's kind of what we're going to try to replicate today. So what I'll do is I'll put this here. This is a reference. Everybody can see this so far, right?
Yes.
See what's down here. All right. What I'm going to do is first I'm going to do the sky, okay? And I'm going to mix up some color for us to use. So I'm going to put the palette here. I got these Turner gouaches. There's a certain amount of blue. And at the bottom, there's some white that we can mix in there so we can get a gradation. All right. What I'm doing, I just take a little bit of water and start to just make it a little bit, extend our paint a little bit. But we don't want to add too much because it'll be, you know, it'll become transparent like watercolor. So I'm going to just start like this, where I'm going to just fill in our sky. Down here. And what I'm using is a Fabriano Classico paper. There's no tooth to it, but so it lends itself to, you know, the paint going on fairly smooth. And what I'm doing now, I'm just trying to mix up some light here. There's no other notice that came up on anybody's screen, is there?
No.
Okay, good. All right. A little bit. Now there's not too much of a gradation right now. The idea is to let it dry, and you can go back in and you can go back in and make it lighter if you want. You can go back in and make the add a darker blue over top if you want to. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the water here, which seems to be if we look at it, kind of a light neutral gray. Now I've got some light gray here, but it's a little bit, I think it's a little too light. So what I'll do is try to add a little bit of gray to it with, you know, by just trying to mix some, you know, orange and blue, rather than trying to just take black paint and put white in. Blue. And I've got a little palette knife for this, where we can just take some yellow, red, and some blue. That's great. Then, since it's tends to be green, we'll just add some red. It's complement to try to gray it down a little bit. Thanks for everybody's patience, because mixing this stuff is so much trial and error sometimes that you don't
Yeah, it's fun to see.
back and forth. So we're getting there. All right. Yeah, I think we still need. Looks like we need a lot of white still. All right. So we're going to just do the kind of what I guess you'd call it the base color of the water, and then go back in and do the heights and troughs of the waves and the ripples in it. So we'll try it with this color here. Here, and I'm going to add a little water, some water to it. Just start here. What this, I don't know if you can see those lines in there or not, but they're just kind of guidelines for what's going on with the horizon land. But we're just gonna try to fill this in.
Rob, if you can push your painting up just a little bit.
Yeah, I think I'll do that because I was, okay, let's do that. Let's try that.
That's good.
Okay. It still seems a little dark to me, so let's go back in. Still can here. Change the color a little bit. Just add more white. You know, it's just like using oil paint. You just add, you know, you want something lighter, you add white or yellow or any of the lighter colors that you might think. Can you still see me? Okay. Call came through. All right, there we've got the just the base color of the bay. What we'll do now is just go in and what we'll try to do now are these areas right in here. You know, this kind of pale green, the brown that's underneath fading into the horizon land, and this far area that I guess it's a bank of trees that stretches all the way across the horizon. Try this. Some of this paint. Out of the green gouache. Okay. Just to make this green area here. These colors are pretty saturated right now, so maybe a little white to knock it, bring it up in value a bit. All right. Try to do now is get a smaller brush. A little bit of water.
Rob, I have a question. If you use the real thick paint and you put it on with a palette knife,
Mhm.
would it peel off?
I don't think it would. I think it'd be fine. If I were to take this, for example, can you see that? Yeah. I think it'd be okay.
Okay, so you pretty much can
do it.
use it like the oil paints.
Yeah, you could, I think. Yeah. Just go a little bit. Okay, this is we've got this kind of middle ground here. I think what we can do is, we can always add a little bit, maybe add some yellow up here to make it lighter as it goes in.
Now you said that light colors dry darker and dark colors dry lighter? Is that what you said?
Yes, I've got something here. I don't know if you can see this. I made this before the talk this morning. This is a puddle, of like yellow. And you can see, when it dries around the edges, you see how the edge color is darker than what's in the puddle?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we've got for the that's what's happening. It dries lighter. And I'll show you an example of the opposite effect, drying lighter, in a minute. Use this, then you want to add a little bit of sorry, I'm going to add some brown here so that we can get this going in here. The where the land meets the water. You know how it's always seems to be that way. There's always seems to be a dark area at the very bottom, like our original painting was. So if we kind of okay. The great thing about gouache is that you can go back in after this dries and you can re-wet it. So you can blend the edges together. So you'll get an effect that's more, that's more like what's bleeding into here. Now I'm going to do the top of the horizon with its darker blue, darker green, I should say. And again, after it's dry, we can go back in and add the texture of the trees, and just overall make it look a little bit more realistic. So the great thing about gouache, as I said before, is that you can let it dry and then you go right over. So what I had done previously, I made this same kind of background last night so that it will be plenty dry for us today. So here's the same background, and it's ready. It's ready for it's ready to go back in for our clouds, you know, the sailboat, and this kind of detail here, the troughs and the highlights for the bay. So if we start first with white, and this is a larger tube of white. It's always good to have a lot of white because you use a lot of it. I'm going to squeeze this out here. I'm going to try to do this first. I'm going to start with a brush like this, you know, watercolor brush, to just get us going here. Again, this stuff's pretty opaque, so it's covering pretty well. Here, we should call these cumulus clouds. Maybe I'm not real versed on different types of clouds, but here touches the horizon. A little more water. And the reason I did this is because even though it would dry, what I did originally would would dry. You know, it'd be completely dry probably in about you know, a half an hour or so. I didn't want to sit around and watch us just watching the paint dry, as they say. So you can paint over it even though it's not completely dry, but you run the risk of muddying the colors, as they say, because it's not completely dry, but it's certainly not like watercolor. So we're just going in here with the, I guess you call it the base formation of the clouds. Here. Okay. So now, you know, you can see it's filled in. It's I'm not sure again, but you can see, I mean, there are areas that are still showing through of the background of the sky. But you know, it's a start. And again, you always go back in and you can just lay more paint over top of it if you really want to make it opaque. I'll move on to the I guess to the water itself. And then once the water's finished, I can put the sailboat in. All right, So color of the water is somewhere in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some more gray. Troughs. It's a little too blue to me. Now we're getting there. Okay. So if I'm going to take a small brush like this. And we're also going to add white so we can also paint in our peaks. The reflected, reflected light coming off the water. And since the water always contains elements of the sky color. Let me try this. So if we go this, we can just start to put in these areas of, I guess you call them troughs, I'm not quite sure. Of course, this is pretty rough, for demonstration purposes. You can go. There's not as much time, obviously, to do all the detail that you would want, but this at least gives you an idea. Now I'm going to go back in and do the, you should call them the peaks. I'm going to take a brush here. White. Some of these light areas, I don't know if you can see if it's lighting up. Let's make it a little brighter, lighter in. Yeah. It's a little better. Is this showing up okay? I think it is.
Yes,
Showing up fine.
yeah, great.
Good, good. Okay.
I see, Rob, you blend on your palette, but not on the paper.
Yeah, so far, yeah. Yeah, I tend to when I oil paint, I tend not to really blend color on the I don't blend that much because it tends to blur. I'm hoping that your eye will blend the colors as opposed to trying to blend them on the palette. I mean on the painting. But you know, there's some instances, as I said, I'll show you after this where we can blend the edges of
Oh, okay.
in here.
Mhm.
So now we're going to put in our sailboat as well. And I left a little bit of space for that, but here. The great thing about gouache is that, yeah, you can just go right over top of this stuff. Here's a sail from, oh, I think I'm blocking the light a little bit. And if we, what color do we want to make our sail? Maybe we make it, I guess, orange. Let's try. Okay. And we can make our sail here orange this time. I've made it blue before. Okay. Take a little bit of, try to do the the actual boat itself with a kind of a neutral brownish color maybe. Here's our boat itself. Now, the reason I'm doing it this way is because I want to let our clouds, you know, dry well enough so we can go back in, you know, for these areas and put these gray areas in. And it's just about there. So I'll try to do a little more on the horizon. Go back in here and this. Okay, we've got some of the dark established there. So we go back in and make a little bit more of, it seems to be a little bit more yellow up here. So we can go over top. Yeah. I've been finding that as you're, if you can work and on certain parts while other parts are trying to dry, it seems to be sort of successful. Okay, let's try a bit more on that horizon up top. Just put some light areas in here, just to kind of break up the monotony of that one solid color. And then what I'll also do is put a little bit on the bottom as well. These areas here. Okay, now I think we can go in and try to do those gray areas on those clouds. So I think I'll start with this this gray color here that I initially squirted out, and try to add some darker gray to it. Sorry if this is bouncing around too much. Now this gray color, since I squirted it out, I mean, it's actually begun to, set up and dry out. So I'm just gonna, add a little water to it so that it's not so, so it's a little more workable. I think it's sort of close to those overall large areas of the clouds. So we'll start with this color here. So we're going to try, to do these areas in here. It's a little too dark. It's a little lighter. That. Again, after this all dries, we can go back and blend. Because obviously clouds don't have sharp edges or anything I've ever seen. here. You can see in the, if you hold them side by side here, the gouache is definitely, more opaque and dense. But we can go in, and as I said, after it's dry, and we can continue to we can blend this together so it works, as well as fix the opacity of these clouds here. It looks like our boat has just about dried, so what I'm going to try is to just go back in. Some of the darker here, the bottom of the boat where it meets the water. And go back in again to the sail. That's some variation. This area a bit lighter. Same time, we can go back in and add a bit of a shadow to the sail. On the inside where it's facing the wind, I suppose. Then again, we can, as I said, we can blend. Bit of a lighter area on this front sail. Then we also can try to put in the mast. Need to turn this to the side, I think. Okay. Okay. Now, let's put a little bit of a highlight there on the boat itself, on the top, before we put our people in. Here. Okay. Then we can add a little bit of the lines where where the mast is, where the sail is sewn together. and maybe a little decorative mark on the sail itself. That. Then we can go in and try to work on the water reflection of the boat. Start here. Boat is sitting in the water here. And then we see our sail kind of reflected in the water here. 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 On the other side, we've got orange again. Sail here that's sort of orange in front, so some of that in. And we can just indicate the mast a little bit. Good. Brush. Okay. Now I think we can go back in a little bit again with our clouds. And go back into these gray shadows, but they're a little, a little lighter. A little lighter areas. People here. Then we can go back in and maybe put the underside of some of the clouds down towards the horizon. here maybe. Okay. Now, since that middle horizon seems to be dry, now we can go in and maybe blend it a little bit. And take a little bit of, just a little bit of water and just blend the edges. I hope this is showing up okay. If it's not, let me know. I can probably zoom in a little bit.
It's good.
Okay. I'm just trying to blend a little bit here.
Can you also show that effect on some areas of the clouds?
Oh,
If
yeah,
they're,
yeah, that's what I'll do next.
okay,
You mean the blending, you mean?
yes.
Okay, yes. Trying to help to unify this this land mass, I want to call it that. Blending between these areas that it goes up into. Yeah, now if we take a small brush here. Try to get the brush I was using. Get the paint out of it. Okay. Then we can start to whoop, that's a little too much water. Yeah, we can start to kind of, you can wet the edges and kind of push the paint around a little bit to make it blend a little bit more. The edges of the top of the clouds where it meets the sky. Then all these areas here. Bringing it together to try to soften it up a little bit. You can go in and put some more clouds in if you like, out here maybe. Can you hear my dog barking?
Yeah.
I'm in the butt. Always wants to come in and then he wants to leave right away. Just trying to blend them. Now we can go back in with our pure white again. Try to make some of these areas more opaque. Here. Delineate some of these areas where the light clouds meet the darks. Yeah, I mean, you can sit here all day and just keep refining it back, back and forth. Layer on top of layer. Here. Lights hitting the top of the clouds here.
Now, I guess while you were doing the clouds, when you started out, you could also have blended right from the get-go.
Yeah, you probably could. It's yeah, I mean, it's as I said, I haven't used it very much. So I mean, I guess as you keep working it, as you get more experience with it, you'll probably have your own way of working. But I mean, that is a good question, and excuse me, I think you're right. You can blend while you're actually putting paint on. Here I'm going to go in and make this cloud a little bit more noticeable. You can go in and make work a little more on the boat, maybe work a little brighter. A bit more blended here.
But I do notice going in and blending afterwards, your colors are very clean.
Yeah, yeah, I guess, yeah, I'm not really sure. I think, all the videos I saw were telling you to do it this way, it seems like. Here. Maybe and maybe make the troughs of those waves a little lighter. Seem a little heavy to me. Yeah, if you watch any of those James Gurney videos, he's really, I mean, he's a master at this, and you probably get a little bit better understanding of what he does to get his effects. last thing I guess we're gonna put in. Put in our people. Let's see there. Yeah. Sort of like got one guy kind of hanging over the side. Then back into putting more of these, white highlights in here. Clouds. Most light. Try to get these blended in a little bit. And again, if I would, because of the demonstration, it's short, shorter time, but just to give you an idea of what this is. Normally I sit here and do it. I guess I do it all day long until I got what I wanted. Let's see. I think that's about it. It gives you a pretty good idea of what this stuff is, how this all works. I'd done an earlier one where it was a little bit, I don't know, a little more, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? I like this one better, but this is, if we try to compare it to what we've, watercolor, I don't know if you can see it all, but yeah, it's definitely a lot more opaque and than our watercolor is, but this at least gives you an idea of what you could expect.
Well, it looks like you can be much more direct
Yeah,
with a gouache.
yeah, I think so. Yeah, very, very direct. I wanted to show you too this way the paint dried, because here's something that I did before. This is look here, these were already done and dried, but if you go over, if you put a fresh bit of color, fresh strokes of color. I don't know, can you see the difference from where you are?
Looks a little darker.
Yeah,
So if the darks dry lighter and the light colors or light values dry darker,
yeah.
if you have a color that dries exactly what it looks like, is that a mid-tone value, like a middle value?
I don't know, I guess it would be. It's almost, what's what I did find is that I think it takes more work to make things dark, because it just dries lighter. You think, oh, okay, now I have to go back in again and try something darker, as dark as I can get. I don't know if that answers your question, Maria, but
No, I mean, it wasn't really a question. It's more like, I wonder if, that in a way establishes your mid-tone, because your mid-tone colors shouldn't dry darker or lighter. So,
yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
but
I could try
this,
an experiment. But yeah, it's funny how it is. It's, you can see again that I showed earlier, this outside area, it's drying darker. It's
Mhm.
inside, I guess then you have to go back in and correct everything. I mean, I think it is trickier to use. I mean, because when you add white to things, it always, it makes them lighter in value, but it cuts down the brilliance,
Right.
the saturation of colors. And so I guess you keep that all in mind. But that video of James Gurney, it's really, really good. It's especially the one where he's sitting there at the tire dealership, just painting the guy at the counter.
I think this was good to see, because if nothing else, it gives us an idea that, it's doable in the sense that when you've never worked with something, you don't know
Right.
how it would behave, but seeing you do it makes it seem like, oh, okay, I mean, I could play around with that. It's not,
Yes, definitely.
yeah, it's not that big a deal, kind of.
This
feeling.
is a learning experience for me, to be honest, because I really haven't used it except for those studies for painting. So I'm like, well, so I was really just watching all the other people, on videos, and seems like this is what they do to try to show you. But yeah, you just get this overall opaque effect, which I personally like, because I mean, I come from a graphic art background, so I could certainly see how this was used in the past, the way David was talking about before the advent of comp markers for illustrations. We do a painting in gouache and show it to an art director, and he would say yay or nay for the cover of the magazine. But I like it because I think, and I haven't tried it, but I'm going to try to just take it outside, a few colors and a small palette, and just.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
Pardon?
I like it a lot. I think this was very wonderful today. Thanks a lot. I think it's great.
Good. I'm glad you liked it.
Well, Robert, no, it's excellent job. Excellent job. It really was good to see you work with it. Just a couple of things, because I come to it also from a similar perspective. I do use it. I used it quite a bit when I was much younger. I didn't appreciate more as I do now, but I just a couple of things. I definitely appreciate that use of the grid. That was great to see that. But I wanted to just mention James Gurney, to everybody out there. If you have a few minutes in the evening, he is incredible, and I want to just reinforce what Robert said. It is worth watching a few of James Gurney's James Gurney's videos. He's incredible. He's actually, he was a friend of Robert Kincaid, I think, the famous oil painting artist. But James Gurney will give you an aspect on gouache that is, like Robert was saying, is incredible. The other one, Robert, that you mentioned, and I go to his site quite a bit. He's been a little cold lately, but Jeff Watts from Watts Atelier in California.
Yeah,
Jeff-
that's
Jeff
one of the
has-
lights in there
Yeah,
too.
Jeff has a few very good gouache videos because as an artist, his father was an artist and worked in the 30s and through the, I guess, 40s and 50s when gouache still had a strong role to play in illustration, which he was. So I would say if you have time too, try to just type into YouTube Jeff Watts gouache, and you'll see him also working in it. And the only thing I would mention to people are two things. One is from Jeff Watts, I learned that the paper that he recommends to work on is a watercolor hot press as opposed to cold press paper, because the hot press paper gives you a flat surface, a smooth flat surface. And he says that it helps the gouache dry and you don't have to deal with the texture of the cold press. And then just from a personal experience, if you're looking to do this, one of the things that I use gouache for, because I didn't want to make a big investment recently since I'm doing mostly watercolor. If you look at what makes up a Zorn palette, there's a very classical Zorn palette. It's essentially just 4 colors: white, black, yellow ochre, and vermilion. And if you just bought those 4 gouache colors and then watched a couple videos on the Zorn palette, it's a good way to start in gouache if you're looking to do a little bit of some portrait work or figure work. For landscape, it's not as effective, so you probably would have to add some other colors, but it would give you a chance to work with a very limited palette. And the advantage to it is, just like Robert was saying, it is the closest thing to oil painting that a water-based artist can do. And that's because of the opacity and the lack of transparency puts you in a situation where it's as close to being an oil painter as you might want to be without dealing with all the solvents and the experience with oil. So yeah, Robert, very good. I really appreciate it. Excellent.